much smaller than the stories suggest. I'm disappointed, Vraxtol continued, his massive form looming over Marcus like a living monument. The alien's exoskeletal plates shifted with a chitinous clicking that echoed in the sudden silence of the mess hall. Stand when I address you, human. Marcus continued eating methodically, eyes flicking up briefly before returning to his meal. I'm comfortable where I am. Thanks. A ripple of shocked whispers circulated through the crowd. No one refused Vraxtol, not if they wanted to keep all their appendages intact. The Grasnair's upper limbs twitched, reflexively reaching for the shock baton that had been confiscated upon his incarceration years ago. Do you know who I am, soft skin? Vraxtol's translator struggled to convey the threatening undertones of his native speech pattern. I know exactly who you are, Marcus replied evenly. And I know what you're doing. Establishing dominance, creating an example, standard procedure in any prison ecosystem. I'm just not interested in playing that game. The casual dismissal struck harder than any physical blow. Vraxtol's secondary breathing vents flared wide, a warning sign Marcus had studied in the brief xenobiology orientation provided to Alliance Marines. A slender, multi-limbed alien at a nearby table caught Marcus's attention with a subtle head gesture that clearly meant danger. Marcus gave an almost imperceptible nod of acknowledgement without breaking eye contact with Vraxtol. 3 cycles ago, a Voltraxian enforcer thought he could disrespect me. Vraxtol said, voice lowering to a menacing rumble. Want to know where I put his sensory stocks? Marcus set down his utensil and finally gave the alien his full attention. You've made your intentions clear. I've made mine clear. This interaction has no productive conclusion. I suggest we both return to our meals. Vraxtol's massive hand shot out, seizing Marcus by the front of his prison jumpsuit and lifting him bodily from the bench. The human's feet dangled 20 centimeters above the floor as the restraints on his limbs hummed with increased power, preventing him from breaking the hold. No productive conclusion. Vraxtol hissed, bringing Marcus closer to his face. I'll show you a conclusion, Deathworlder. What happened next occurred so quickly that many witnesses later disagreed on the sequence of events. Marcus's body went completely limp for a fraction of a second, a calculated surrender to gravity that shifted his weight unexpectedly. As Vraxtol automatically adjusted his grip, Marcus executed a twist that no restrained prisoner should have been capable of, slipping free of the alien's grasp with serpentine grace. He landed in a balanced crouch, making no aggressive move but positioned with clear sightlines to all potential threats. Impressive reflexes for a restrained human, came a new voice, a prison guard who had been watching from the periphery with professional interest. But that's enough entertainment for today. Disperse, all of you. The crowd reluctantly began to break up as additional guards entered the mess hall. Vraxtol's compound eyes narrowed to slits. This isn't finished, human, he promised quietly. The pit has its own justice system. Sleep lightly. Marcus offered the faintest of smiles. I always do. It's an evolutionary adaptation from living on a predator-filled death world. As the guards escorted him back to his cell, Marcus could feel dozens of alien gazes following his every move, some curious, some calculating, some suddenly wary. His first day in the pit had established one critical fact. A restrained human was still more dangerous than most realized, and he hadn't even begun to fight back yet. There are 19 ways I could incapacitate you from this position. I'd prefer to use none of them, Marcus said, his voice carrying an authority that seemed at odds with his restrained state. Vraxtol's facial plates flexed in what passed for amusement among his species, bold words from someone wearing neural suppressors. Perhaps they've damaged your reasoning centers. The Grasnair began circling, each deliberate step causing slight vibrations through the floor. The watching crowd widened the ring, nobody wanting to be caught in the inevitable violence about to unfold. The suppressors limit my physical strength, Marcus clarified. Not my training or experience. He pivoted smoothly, maintaining optimal distance without showing fear or aggression. A thin, blue-skinned inmate with vertically slitted pupils whispered to their companion, "Watch the human's eyes. See how they track everything." Predator gaze. Vraxtel lunged again, a feint designed to force Marcus against the wall. Instead of retreating, Marcus stepped into the movement, ducking beneath the massive arm and using Vraxtel's momentum to position himself back in the center of the circle. "Fascinating," observed a senior guard to his junior colleague. "The restraints should prevent that level of coordination." The junior guard adjusted the sensitivity on her monitoring device. "His neural patterns don't match our baseline for humans. Either the baseline is wrong, or he's adapting to the suppressors," finished the senior guard. "Note that in the observation log. Central Command will want to know." In the ring, frustration was beginning to override Vraxtel's calculated intimidation strategy. 3 times now he had failed to land a decisive blow on what should have been easy prey. Worse, the human hadn't even attempted to strike back, making the confrontation look increasingly one-sided, but not in Vraxtel's favor. "Fight back, coward," Vraxtel snarled, mandibles clicking in agitation. "That would defeat the purpose of this exercise," Marcus replied calmly. "What exercise?" "Your education." The calculated insult finally broke Vraxtel's restraint. With a roar that overloaded several nearby translators, he charged with full force, all 4 arms extended to ensure the human couldn't sidestep again. Marcus waited until the last possible moment before dropping flat to the ground. Vraxtel, unable to adjust his momentum, stumbled over the prone human and crashed heavily into a meal dispensing unit, sending nutrient paste spraying in all directions. Rising to his feet with fluid grace, Marcus brushed imaginary dust from his prison jumpsuit. "Physics applies to all species equally," he commented to no one in particular. "Mass times acceleration is a universal constant." Several inmates nervously chuckled, then fell silent as Vraxtel slowly extracted himself from the twisted metal, viscous food substitute dripping from his armored plates. The Grasner's breathing had changed to a low, threatening rasp that required no translation. Before the situation could escalate further, alarm tones echoed through the mess hall. "End of meal period," announced the automated system. All inmates returned to assigned sectors for mid-cycle lockdown. Guards moved in with shock batons at ready. Vraxtel gave Marcus one final glare, the promise of retribution evident in his stance. "This interaction has been educational," Marcus said, loud enough for nearby inmates to hear clearly. "Thank you for the demonstration." As he was escorted from the mess hall, Marcus caught sight of the thin, blue-skinned alien watching him with newfound interest. Something in the alien's gaze suggested not just curiosity but recognition, as though they had just witnessed something long anticipated. The first challenge had ended in stalemate, but the game was just beginning. In the pit, reputation was currency, and Marcus had just made his first deposit. Many powerful entities want to understand your weaknesses before you discover your true potential. Xyler finished, the bioluminescent patterns beneath their translucent skin pulsing with increasing intensity. Marcus absorbed this information, mentally reorganizing his understanding of his situation. "You're not just here to warn me about Vraxtel, are you? What's your stake in this?" Itlera's serpentine lower body coiled slightly tighter. "Before my incarceration, I specialized in reverse engineering Confederation technology. The restraints they've placed on you incorporate classified components I recognize from military weapons research." "Specifically?" Marcus prompted. "Adaptive suppression fields designed to neutralize unknown biological threats," she explained, one set of hands moving in precise, technical gestures. "The Confederation developed them after first contact with a particularly hostile hive species in the Cygnus arm. The technology was deemed too dangerous for deployment because it couldn't distinguish between combatants and civilians." Ziller's skin briefly flashed a pattern that Marcus interpreted as agitation. Until humans entered galactic space, suddenly the project received new funding and resources. Marcus processed this soberly. You think they're developing weapons specifically for use against humans. But why? We've done nothing to threaten the Confederation. It's not what you've done, Elura said, her voice dropping lower. It's what they believe you're capable of. Most spacefaring species evolved on worlds with stable ecosystems and predictable environmental parameters, which shaped their psychology, Marcus concluded, connecting the dots. Species from benign worlds expect stability and gradual change. They find unpredictability threatening. And humans, Xyler interjected, come from a world that tried to kill them in countless ways. Your baseline adaptability appears to them as chaos incarnate. A soft buzzing sound from the corridor alerted them to approaching security. Elura quickly unwound her coils and moved toward the door. 3 cycles from now, maintenance access in Sector 7 will experience a routine power fluctuation. The cameras go offline for approximately 47 seconds. I'll be there, Marcus confirmed, adding after a brief pause, "Why are you helping me?" Xyler's neural pathways pulsed a deep purple, an emotional indicator Marcus couldn't interpret, because the Confederation's fear of humans is causing them to become exactly what they fear, a species willing to develop extermination protocols against those they don't understand. As his visitors slipped away seconds before the security patrol passed, Marcus lay back on his bunk, staring at the ceiling. The revelation about the pit's true purpose changed everything. He wasn't just fighting for his own survival now, but potentially for the future of human-alien relations throughout the galaxy. Morning arrived with the harsh buzz of cell locks disengaging. As inmates shuffled to the sanitation facilities, Marcus noticed subtle changes in how others interacted with him. Word of his encounter with Vraxtol had spread overnight, transforming from accurate account to embellished legend. Some inmates now gave him an even wider berth, while others watched with calculating interest. In the hygiene station, a hulking Tarvosian with ridged exoskeletal plating deliberately bumped against Marcus, testing his reaction. Marcus recognized the tactic, one of Vraxtol's enforcers probing for weaknesses. "The boss says your luck runs out today, Deathworlder," the Tarvosian rumbled quietly. Marcus maintained his composure, finishing his ablutions without acknowledging the threat. But as he turned to leave, he leaned slightly toward the enforcer. "Tell your boss I look forward to our next educational session," he said with a slight smile. The game was escalating faster than expected. Marcus would need to accelerate his plans and determine which of his new allies could truly be trusted when the moment of crisis arrived. "Earth's mountain climbers face worse conditions for fun on weekends," Marcus said with a shrug, watching the chief engineer's compound eyes widen in disbelief. The security detail escorted him back to his cell block, their posture notably different, more alert, more cautious. Marcus detected subtle changes in how they handled him, maintaining slightly greater distance than protocol required. Fear, disguised as professional caution. Back in general population, the reaction was immediate and electric. Inmates who had previously ignored him now tracked his movements with undisguised interest. A Mendorian crystal merchant nodded respectfully as Marcus passed. 2 Phosian maintenance workers whispered behind their breathing apparatuses, their translator units deliberately switched off. Quite the performance in the outer ring, came a familiar voice from the shadows of the recreation area. Vraxtol stepped into view, flanked by only 2 guards instead of his usual entourage. A calculated statement. He wanted this conversation to appear casual, not confrontational. There was no performance, Marcus replied evenly. Just survival. Survival. Vraxtol tested the word like an unfamiliar food. The atmosphere vented to 30% normal pressure. The temperature dropped to levels that would freeze most species' circulatory fluids. Yet here you stand, without even visible discomfort. Basic human adaptability. Vraxtol's armored plates shifted subtly. Nothing about your kind is basic. The guards are calling it impossible. Then they have limited imaginations, Marcus said, watching the Grasnair carefully. This wasn't the confrontation he had expected. Something had changed. What they lack in imagination, they compensate for with curiosity, Vraxtol observed. The incident has been reported to Central Science Authority. Special observers will arrive within 2 cycles. Marcus maintained his composure despite the implication. Special observers meant increased scrutiny, potentially accelerated testing protocols. Not good. I should thank you, Marcus said, surprising the alien. Without your creative maintenance scheduling, I might never have discovered the sabotaged panel. Vraxtol's mandibles clicked rapidly, the Grasner equivalent of a startled blink. You believe I arranged the incident, didn't you? A long pause followed as Vraxtol studied the human with newfound intensity. No, he finally said, his voice dropping to a register below what most nearby inmates could hear. But I know who did. Before Marcus could respond, the lights in the recreation area flickered briefly. A signal. Vraxtol straightened, his public persona returning instantly. Enjoy your temporary celebrity, Deathworlder, he announced loudly for the benefit of anyone listening. The pit has broken far more impressive specimens than you. As Vraxtol departed with his guards, Marcus noticed a small data chip had appeared on the bench beside him, passed during their conversation with expert sleight of hand. He palmed it casually, keeping his expression neutral despite the racing of his mind. Back in his cell, Marcus carefully examined the chip using techniques to block the surveillance devices Zyler had identified. The contents were encrypted but included schematics of the pit's security systems and a message. Not accident. Test. Authorized by Warden Krivlox. Next test. Toxin exposure. Mess hall. Tomorrow. Dosage. Lethal for standard physiology. Marcus processed this information with growing unease. If Vraxtol hadn't orchestrated the accident, but instead had access to classified security protocols, the Grasner was far more connected than anyone realized. The question remained, was this information a genuine warning or a more elaborate trap? Either way, tomorrow's meal would be anything but routine. Marcus began mentally cataloging everything he knew about Confederation biotoxins and human resistance thresholds as the lights dimmed for sleep cycle. The game had just become significantly more complex. They fear what might happen if humans ever unleash their full potential without understanding their vulnerabilities first, Alara concluded, her multiple arms gesturing with increasing agitation. Marcus processed this revelation silently, piecing together fragments of intelligence from his Alliance briefings. Earth's diplomatic integration into the galactic community had proceeded with surprising speed, almost suspiciously so. Now he understood why. The Confederation hadn't welcomed humans out of altruism, but from strategic necessity. Keep your potential threats close, study them, find their weaknesses. How widespread is this research program? He finally asked. 17 facilities across 12 systems, Alara replied. The pit is merely where they send the subjects deemed most valuable, those who've demonstrated unusual resilience or adaptability. Like surviving incidents that should have been fatal, Marcus concluded. Precisely. Your performance during the decompression event triggered a security protocol escalation. They're accelerating the testing timeline. The implications chilled Marcus more than the vacuum of space ever could. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, blind to the existential threat lurking behind diplomatic smiles and technology exchanges. Your people need to be warned, Zyler interjected, bioluminescent patterns pulsing with what Marcus had come to recognize as urgent concern. That would require getting a message past the pit's communication blockers, Marcus noted, which is precisely why they put us in a prison with no outgoing channels. Alara's serpentine body shifted restlessly. There might be a way. During maintenance cycles, the quantum entanglement communicator in the warden's office briefly connects to the central network for synchronization. If we could access it during that window. Their conversation halted as heavy footsteps approached. The cell door slid open, revealing Vraxtol, his massive frame somehow appearing less threatening than during their first encounter. Human, the Grasner said quietly, we need to talk about mutual survival. Marcus studied the alien warily. That's an unexpected phrase from someone who threatened to use my eyes as decorative items. Circumstances evolve, Vraxtel replied, as do strategic alliances. Illyra's upper body tensed, hands moving to defensive positions. You can't trust him, Marcus. The Grasner Collective has security contracts with the Confederation. Had, Vraxtel corrected. Past tense. Before they decided our species was also too unpredictable for comfortable coexistence. He extended a data tablet showing classified reports that confirmed his claim. The Confederation had recently begun phasing out Grasner security forces, replacing them with automated systems based on. Marcus felt a chill. Neural patterns harvested from suitable test subjects. They're using imprisoned humans as templates for security systems. Marcus asked, the horror of this revelation sinking in. Not just security systems, Vraxtel said grimly. Targeting systems, predictive response algorithms, threat assessment matrices. They're weaponizing human cognitive patterns while seeking physiological weaknesses to exploit. The pieces aligned with disturbing clarity. The Confederation wasn't preparing defensive measures. They were developing a comprehensive strategy for species-wide neutralization. I can help you access the Warden's quantum communicator, Vraxtel continued. In exchange for your word that when you contact your people, you'll inform them of the Grasner situation as well. Marcus exchanged glances with Illyra and Zillar. The alliance Vraxtel proposed was dangerous and uncertain, yet potentially their only viable option. Why should I believe you? Marcus asked. Vraxtel's armored plates shifted in what Marcus now recognized as their equivalent of a grim smile. Because, human, while your kind may be the galaxy's most adaptable predators, mine are the most pragmatic survivors. And right now, survival requires cooperation. The plan required perfect timing and a major distraction. During exercise period 3 days later, Marcus deliberately provoked Vraxtel with information about a shipment of contraband, supposedly intercepted by guards. The staged confrontation escalated with convincing realism. Your sources betrayed you, Grasner, Marcus announced loudly enough for nearby inmates to hear. The shipment was compromised before it even reached the outer perimeter. Vraxtel's performance was equally convincing, his massive form trembling with apparent rage. You dare interfere with my operations, human. He advanced menacingly, 4 arms flexing to display maximum intimidation. Security drones immediately registered the rising tension, hovering closer as their sensors detected Vraxtel's elevated biochemical markers. The Grasner continued the charade perfectly, his mandibles clicking rapidly in a display that even the most experienced guards would interpret as uncontrolled anger. The terms of our arrangement were clear, Marcus pressed, maintaining eye contact while subtly positioning himself to block security cameras from capturing Zillar passing something to Illyra in the background. What happened next wasn't planned. Creel, Vraxtel's 4-armed lieutenant, unexpectedly launched himself at Marcus from a blind spot. The attack wasn't part of their choreographed confrontation, but a genuine attempt to incapacitate the human. Enough talking. Creel snarled, all 4 limbs wielding improvised weapons fashioned from prison materials. Marcus reacted instinctively, his body responding with speed that surprised even him. The restraints that should have limited his movements seemed to offer less resistance than before, allowing him to narrowly evade the main thrust of Creel's attack. A secondary blade grazed his arm, drawing blood, the first actual injury he'd sustained since arriving at the pit. Vraxtel's reaction revealed the truth. The Grasner's momentary widening of compound eyes and subtle shift in posture confirmed this wasn't part of their plan, which meant either Creel had gone rogue or someone else had subverted Vraxtel's authority structure. Guards swarmed in with shock buttons as the confrontation escalated. Marcus allowed himself to be restrained, maintaining his role in the deception despite the unexpected variable. Across the exercise yard, he caught a glimpse of Illyra successfully retrieving the hidden device Zillar had prepared, a makeshift signal booster essential for accessing the quantum communicator. Isolation for both instigators, the senior guard announced, nodding toward Marcus and Vraxtal. Standard protocol. 24-hour assessment before return to general population. Perfect. Exactly as they had planned, except for Creel's intervention, and the blood now seeping from Marcus's wound. In isolation, Marcus examined the injury with clinical detachment. The blade had delivered more than just physical damage. His skin around the wound displayed an unusual discoloration. Chemical analysis would be necessary to identify the compound, but the progressive numbness spreading through his arm suggested some form of neurotoxin. Creel hadn't just attacked him. He'd attempted to assassinate him with a poisoned weapon. The implications were troubling. Either Vraxtal's alliance offer was an elaborate trap, or, more concerning, someone had compromised their plan and was actively working to eliminate Marcus before he could contact the alliance. As the numbness crept toward his shoulder, Marcus focused his mind, drawing on specialized alliance training. His metabolic processes began to accelerate, attempting to identify and neutralize the foreign substance through adaptive immune response, another uniquely human capability that the Confederation researchers clearly underestimated. The isolation cell's monitoring systems registered the anomalous changes in his physiology, triggering silent alerts throughout the pit's security network. Somewhere in the facility, researchers watched with clinical fascination as the Deathworlder demonstrated yet another unexpected survival adaptation. The game had become deadlier, but they had achieved their primary objective, positioning for access to the communicator. Now Marcus just needed to survive the assassination attempt long enough to use it. Our real evolutionary advantage, Marcus said, his voice dropping an octave, is adaptation itself. The restraints fell away completely as Marcus completed the neural override sequence Ilera had helped him discover. For the first time since his arrival at the pit, he stood unencumbered, the full capabilities of his Deathworlder physiology available to him. Vraxtal's enforcers hesitated, their instincts recognizing the shift in power dynamics before their conscious minds processed what had happened. That momentary hesitation proved costly. Marcus moved with fluid precision that defied the aliens' perceptual frameworks. To their visual processing systems, adapted for different temporal resolutions, the humans seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously. He didn't waste energy on dramatic strikes or showy techniques. Each movement served a specific purpose, neutralizing threats with minimal force and maximum efficiency. Your species evolved for burst combat, Marcus explained conversationally as he sidestepped a desperate lunge from one of the enforcers. High energy expenditure followed by recovery periods, effective against large predators. He ducked beneath a swing that would have removed his head, using the attacker's momentum to guide him into a collision with another enforcer. Both went down in a tangle of limbs. Humans evolved for persistence hunting, he continued, never raising his voice despite the chaos. We pursued prey until they collapsed from exhaustion. Our bodies optimized for sustained output rather than peak performance. 3 enforcers attempted to coordinate their attack, approaching from different angles. Marcus simply wasn't where their blows landed, having already calculated their movements before they initiated them. Pattern recognition, he noted. Another survival adaptation. Early humans needed to predict environmental threats and animal behaviors. We became very good at recognizing sequences. Within 42 seconds, 5 of the 6 enforcers lay incapacitated but alive, their nervous systems temporarily disrupted by precisely targeted strikes to species-specific vulnerability points. Knowledge Marcus had gleaned from surreptitious study of xenobiology texts in the prison database. Only Vraxtal remained standing, his massive form radiating a curious mix of rage and dawning respect. You've been studying us, the Grasnair realized. All this time, while appearing passive, you were cataloging weaknesses. Not weaknesses, Marcus corrected. Differences. Knowledge isn't inherently weaponized unless circumstances demand it. Vraxtal unleashed his full strength in a desperate assault. His armored fists cracked the corridor walls with missed blows as Marcus continued his impromptu biology lesson. Your exoskeleton evolved for protection against enormous pressure differentials in your homeworld's extreme weather systems, Marcus noted clinically. Excellent defense against blunt force trauma, but with necessary trade-offs in joint flexibility and neural cluster exposure. With surgical precision, Marcus struck the exact intersection of thoracic plates where Grasner physiology required sensory nerve bundles to remain close to the surface. Vraxtol froze mid-motion, his massive body suddenly unresponsive to his commands. Temporary paralysis, Marcus assured him. No permanent damage. As alarms blared and security protocols activated throughout the facility, Marcus crouched beside the immobilized Vraxtol. I need to know right now, was Creel acting on your orders when he poisoned me? Despite his paralysis, Vraxtol managed a slight mandible movement that Marcus had learned to interpret as a negative. The Warden, Vraxtol rasped through partially functioning vocal mechanisms. He suspected our alliance. Creel was compromised. Marcus nodded, helping position the Grasner more comfortably against the wall. Then our arrangement stands. I'll honor my part of the deal. With that, he retrieved the security access module from Vraxtol's concealed pouch and sprinted toward the control center, where Ilera and Ziller would be waiting with the modified communication device. The true test of their plan, and their unlikely alliance, was about to begin. Tell them, Vraxtol called as the shuttle doors began to close, that the first Grasner ambassador to Earth will be awaiting diplomatic transport. The shuttle's engines ignited with a thunderous roar, propelling them away from the pit's docking bay, just as security protocols finally overcame Ilera's ingenious override sequences. Behind them, emergency containment fields activated too late to prevent their escape. Inside the cramped vessel, Marcus worked quickly to establish a secure connection using the quantum entanglement communicator they had stolen from the Warden's office. Unlike conventional communication systems, quantum entanglement couldn't be blocked or traced, which was precisely why the Confederation restricted its use to highest-level officials. Will they receive us? Ilera asked, her serpentine coils tightly wrapped around a support strut as the shuttle performed evasive maneuvers. They'll receive us, Marcus confirmed, finalizing the encryption protocols. Alliance Command has standing orders to accept any quantum transmission, regardless of origin point. The connection established with a soft chime. On the small view screen, a startled Alliance officer appeared, clearly surprised to receive communication through this ultra-secure channel. This is Tactical Commander Reyes, the officer announced. Identify yourself immediately. Staff Sergeant Marcus Chen, Alliance Marines, Identification Code Sierra, Echo 729 Delta. I'm transmitting evidence of Confederation violations of the Galactic Charter, specifically Articles 7, 12, and 19 concerning prohibited weapons research and unlawful experimentation on sentient beings. Marcus uploaded the comprehensive data package they had compiled, Ilera's technical schematics of the restraint technology, Zeller's intercepted communications regarding the human testing program, and the classified research protocols detailing the weaponization of human neural patterns. The Confederation isn't preparing for peaceful coexistence, Marcus explained, his voice steady despite the gravity of his revelation. They're developing specialized countermeasures against human physiology, while simultaneously creating weapons derived from our cognitive processes. Commander Reis's expression hardened as she reviewed the incoming data. This would constitute an act of war if verified. How did you obtain this intelligence? With help, Marcus replied, gesturing to Ilera and Ziller. Not all Confederation species support this program. There are potential allies who recognize that diversity, even unpredictable diversity, strengthens rather than threatens galactic stability. As the shuttle accelerated toward the system's jump point, Marcus transmitted Vraxtol's final message regarding Grasner diplomatic intentions. We need to rethink our approach to interspecies relations. The Confederation's leadership fears human adaptability because it represents unpredictability in their orderly systems, but that same quality makes us ideal mediators between diverse evolutionary perspectives. Behind them, the pit's defensive systems activated, launching pursuit vessels. Illyra's claws danced across the navigation controls, plotting an unpredictable course using techniques she designed specifically to confound predictive targeting algorithms. They're deploying the neural-based tracking systems, Xyler warned, monitoring the sensor readouts, weapons locked and charging. Marcus smiled slightly. They're using systems based on standard human thought patterns. He took the controls, executing a maneuver that defied conventional space combat doctrine, deliberately reducing shields to divert power to a precisely timed microjump. But the one thing they couldn't program into their systems, he continued as their shuttle vanished from the pursuer's sensors, is humanity's capacity for creative improvisation under pressure. The shuttle reappeared at the jump point coordinates, immediately activating its full drive before the Confederation vessels could reacquire their position. As they entered hyperspace, Marcus exchanged glances with his unlikely alien allies. Their escape was just the beginning. The real challenge lay ahead. Convincing humanity and the dissident Confederation species that cooperation, not domination, was the evolutionary path forward.